Hi there, my name is Marcus Ayers. I live in Edmond, Oklahoma, and this video is being put together for the Yard to Yard project. I'm a huge fan of what you guys are doing. This yard has been pesticide free for at least 4 years. Before that, the only pesticide I used was a pre-emergent to try to get rid of those nasty little stickers. Since then, I've not gotten rid of them, but I just sort of tolerate them, and they're sort of quarantined to those sections of the yard. This area here has become the compost station. Right here is the kind of the heart or the beginning of the compost collection system here. We collect compost from inside of the house and we throw it in that little bin there, and I mix it in each time with some leaves and some green grass and just sort of do a lasagna type of layering. It's been a while since I've timed it right, but I've placed this on top of a pail to catch water as the rain runs through it. And usually I'll try within a couple of days after a rain to pull that pail out and to put it on the plants. As I understand it, it's a sort of a compost tea of sorts, because as the rainwater just soaks through that compost, it picks up the organic material from the compost, puts it in the bucket down below, and you let it sit for a day or two and then water your plants. If you let it go past that, it loses its nutritious content and or it goes bad. This right here I acquired this year through the city of Edmond. It is a compost rotator. This is an area of the yard that I have blown leaves into for quite a number of years, and it's created leaf mold in this area. And actually this section right here I have dug up to use in my new planters, but from kind of here on has been several years worth of leaf mold build up. Back here in this part of the yard are a few compostable materials from the yard. This is a mostly green or grass pile. This here is a long-term leaf mold pile, as well as this bin, which you can see is already broken down since spring. That was full of leaves, and so it's turning into a nice leaf mold compost pile. Here are a couple of piles of branches that are ready for the wood chipper once I rent one of those. And this is a burn pile that I've had that has been metal free since I started it. And I don't yet use the ash in composting because I don't really know sort of how that fits in yet. Another angle of the front yard. So I do use a riding lawnmower. I'm not totally pleased with how quickly it runs out of gas, and I'd love to learn more about how to extend the gas mileage of my lawnmower. I've kind of been looking into that. I don't catch it. In fact, early in the season, in the spring season, this grass really grows up really thick. And so not only does it kind of drop down into this front yard, but I've had a couple of really good piles of fescue grass that I can just collect and put near the compost pile to just add as needed. I wanted to talk a little bit about irrigation. We have a aerobic septic system. There are two heads connected to it, and they both water the front yard. One is here in the kind of the middle of the yard. That's what's shown here. Another is in this cluster of grass that I've allowed to grow, and I'm actually hoping to possibly turn this into a little garden and turn that sprinkler head into a drip irrigation head. But I've let this cluster of grass grow to maybe let it be a cover crop of sorts, or if I need to plant a new cover crop this fall, I'll do that. over here, so this is our front yard, but the benefit of being able to experiment with all of this is that we actually sit behind someone, and so that's a lane that comes down to our house. So that creates really the ability for me to do whatever I want in our yard and for nobody to really care. But over here in the front yard, I've got another little section that I let grow, little sun exposed section. But up until a couple of years ago, I mowed this whole front yard, and I mowed our whole backyard. But the last couple of years, I've intentionally allowed some of these other areas to just grow naturally. This section of the yard I seed every year with fescue, and I mow it on its highest setting, and it's really one of the largest areas that I mow, between this area of the front yard, the back area, and then the lane, and then this little island here. Those are the only places that I mow. This is the one water spigot for the entire yard. For as far as watering the yard, we have no formal irrigation system other than the aerobic water system connected to the septic tank, which only waters this front yard with 2 spigots. Anything else that I'm watering with either rainwater or through this water spigot, which I've got a line that goes to that side of the house, a line that goes to this side of the house. There are just 3 areas that I'll water with a water sprinkler once a week. This is one of them, this is another, and then that island over there. This is the main area where I have focused on collecting rainwater. This is a rain barrel connected to 2 trash cans that I've basically stolen from their original purpose of a trash can, and collected extra rainwater. 2 times now I've made compost tea using these trash cans. I use a mesh bag from the beer brewing batch that I had that collects about maybe a gallon worth of compost. And then one time I just put the whole bag in there and let it sit for a couple of days. Another time I did more of a recipe that included molasses, fish fertilizer, and a third product that I can't remember right now. Here's the watering bucket I collect water from, and basically gets my steps in because I'm walking all over the yard watering plants with this. This is a second large rain barrel. I acquired it through the city of Edmond this year. Not sure where this is going to end up. We've talked about leaving it here. This part of the house needs a rain gutter in which to attach it there. Where I've got an existing rain gutter on the other side of the house that this will attach to relatively easy. This here is the largest section of vegetable garden that I've got going. This is my first year to do a garden, and so it's relatively small to scale. I've got quite a few things going on here. I've got some cucamelon vines taken from the little herb garden area over there by the house. I've got some cherry tomatoes in a pot here, and in a little repurposed planter here. I've got tomatoes here. I've got peppers here. Got a little onion down there. It's the only one that survived. You can't really see it. I've got some gourds growing here that are just kind of, fun, I guess. And here is a giant cluster of 2 or 3 zucchini plants. Next to that, we've got some peppers, onions, and then about 3 okra plants. This is one of two vegetable garden areas that I have in the yard. This is a shaded area, and I've been experimenting with what I'm told are vegetables that will grow well in the shade. Here we've got some kale. This kale is really coming in pretty good. I thinned out and transplanted some just about 5 days ago to this side of the yard, from this side of this square rather. Here I've got some watercress. The rain tends to beat this down pretty bad. I think the combination of that and maybe some need to thin that out. But I'm hoping that will just take over and be a beautiful little planter of watercress. This is where I've got some starters of some vines and some flowers that I've just been gradually transplanting. Not having much success transplanting these vines because they're so thin and finicky, but I'll keep experimenting. And then finally on this side of the house, I have some Brussels sprouts. These Brussels sprouts have been a bit of a quandary to me because they're not growing very fast. I'm told they work well, they grow well in the shade, but I'm experimenting a little here with propping some of them up, but hopefully I'll find a way for these things to grow better. Here we've got the herb garden. I've got a mojito mint, sage, basil, and a delicious Greek sage. Right here is a little spot that every year I transplant some red clover into, and usually I just let it grow. This year I've kind of cut it down, harvested or whatever, and put it in the compost pile so that it'll grow up again, and I'll just keep doing that. I've heard you can do like a clover tea or something, but haven't quite looked into that. And then we've got chocolate mint, and right here is a cluster of cucamelon vine, some lavender here, and some rosemary. Got 3 rosemary bushes spread out really by the 3 entrances of the house. This is my potting gardening station and grill. This little molehill is a good spot to talk about how I'm hoping this yard can become truly a regenerative experiment or habitat for animals. Not a fan of moles, and I've heard that a couple of predators that take care of moles tend to live in trees. And so I'm hoping right here is a cedar that I'm cutting down, but I'm leaving a good part of the trunk to build a box with the goal of drawing in either an owl or a hawk to nest there. But regardless, from what I understand, the habitat that we have back here is in general more friendly to rodents, which in and of itself brings in hawks more frequently, perhaps owls. But I'm trying to draw in these friends to make this place their home. I talk a little bit here about use of rain and the hope to try to diversify ecosystems. This here is a little water bucket pond plastic container that I am hoping to catch rainwater in. We are catching rainwater in, but the rock that I've got here is not quite working out. The water's really kind of washing it out, so I've got to find a solution for the flow of water. But eventually I want to catch the rainwater there and just have a little water habitat, maybe even have a little waterfall down to a second level underneath there. This is admittedly on the side of our entire yard, so it's really away from everything else that's going on in the yard. Right here we've got a pretty large rock pile. These are rocks that were taken off of the back of the house from an addition to the house 25, 30 years ago. This cluster of lavender I think is about 4 or 5 years old, and about a month ago, for about a month, we had bees feasting on this thing. They've sort of abandoned it, so I guess it's all used up.